Shalom, welcome to the Working Class Chronicles. And so today I've decided to start a new series. This is called Middle Management Monday. I thought that was pretty funny, catchy. But I wanted to have a space where you guys can get a chance to talk to me sometimes, especially since a lot of the content is going to be reels and videos. I wanted you to talk to me and get to know me and know what inspired this channel. By the way, I'm your host, Renaissance Woman, aka Ren Judah. You can also catch me on the Hebrew Woman Show. Every Sabbath, we do a leadership show talking about the Bible from a leadership perspective. It is a channel that's for women by women. This channel here is for everybody, okay? And we also have a Facebook page, the Working Class Chronicles, where I post articles there, and the Renaissance Woman page, where I post articles there. There is a Hebrew Woman page as well, and I'm working on these different outlets for online, establishing the online presence. But as far as a weekly catch up where you're just able to talk to me and ask me questions live, this is going to be the space for that. And I'm also uh, going to drop the link because I do want you all to be able to participate, ask questions, and join the discussion from time to time. If you have any questions that you want to ask, go ahead and drop it in the chat. So basically, the Working Class Chronicles is dedicated towards the working class people. And being a working class person myself, I feel like a lot of times our issues aren't properly addressed in the media. I feel like we are the working horse of the nation, yet we're the most overlooked and not discussed. And oftentimes you don't even see people interviewing and talking to the everyday average Joe. So that's the other thing that we're going to do on this channel. We're going to feature interviews of everyday folks like me and you who watch this channel to come on and talk about what it is you do in your industry, or just the workforce in general. Talk about how we've turned it to a gig economy and why. We talk about here on, I have a Office Terminator series, and I talk a lot about navigating a hostile work environment. And I think you will find, just like with comedians, a lot of times content typically reflects the season that a person is in. So in comedians, the Drewski skit, people were really upset about that, but what was he supposed to talk about or joke about? And people were saying, well, he wouldn't do this about that community. That's not necessarily true. People are telling jokes and they're doing content based on their experiences. And I don't think there's any of us that has not experienced a toxic work environment or just undesirable work conditions, period. And then sometimes just navigating workplace relationships and building community, what that looks like, how that takes place, challenges that we face in doing that. For me, I'm in a season of leadership. I'm studying leadership. I'm interested in all things leadership. I'm reading a lot of leadership books right now. And so I kind of switched gears here and just started talking about some of the things that I've experienced, things that in the past and even in the present. Dealing with people, period, every day, you're going to encounter a lot of different things. And so just to talk about that in a way that makes sense to me is what I do here. And that's what you'll see me doing that a lot through the imagery and stuff. But I want to kind of give you an idea of what Middle Management Mondays is going to be about. I decided that I would create a space for supervisors to show up, for people in management and workers as well. It just not being in leadership doesn't mean that you can't come and ask questions. However, I one of the things that when I stepped into my leadership role, I felt like there was a vacuum of just everyday practical leadership advice, or just and even not just leadership. I could just basic supervisory skills. A lot of times the training that you receive is not efficient. It's not sufficient to get you through some of the difficulties that you will run into in the office space. I think that if it were up to me and I were running an organization, I would literally have a management space like how I'm having here for management Mondays, middle management Mondays, so that the leaders, people in leadership, especially the middle management, can get together and talk on a regular basis about the challenges that they face and maybe create like a mastermind group so that you can build off of these challenges and help each other work through them. Because, when you're in the middle of a situation, you need to be able to talk to your peers. And if you don't have a group of peers that you can talk to about the issues that you run into, you end up talking to your team members. And you really can't do that about other coworkers. So if you don't have anyone on your team that you can talk to, you don't have another supervisor or manager that you can safely confide in, you end up having to go outside of your organization and talking to other leaders. And sometimes that's not always beneficial because they don't really understand the work dynamics. But I think management, in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to just basic management, is kind of universal when it comes to dealing with people and the issues that you run across dealing with employees. So, and my whole purpose in everything I do, including these channels, this is my rehearsal ground. I use these spaces to help me teach what I'm learning so that I can understand it better. Because if you can teach it properly, once you get into the flow of where you're able to fully articulate your points and teach with clarity, then you know you've mastered the material. So I'm in the process of learning like to even with the Renaissance Woman page and shows. I've always liked to come and share what I'm learning and learn with other people and open up the space to hear, well, what challenges are you facing? What are you dealing with? And you know, whether you're in a toxic or non-toxic work environment, you're going to run into challenges just dealing with people because just like any relationship, you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. And so I come here because I'm doing a new thing. And the Bible, when the Most High, when He was promising the children of Israel, if they just will keep His laws, statutes, and commandments, He would do a new thing for them. He said, "Behold, I do a new thing, and now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." Now you think about that when He's talking about He'll make a way in the wilderness. And if you've ever been through any wilds, you've even been through some wild backyards that were just difficult to navigate. So imagine out in nature and in a desert. He said, I will have a river run through these deserts if I want to. That's just how powerful the Almighty is. And so for me, part of my protocol, so this is what I'm building for me in my leadership program. What I'm showing you all right now, I am showing up in this space to show you how I am developing and building my own personal leadership plan. And this will probably, hopefully, give you some ideas, whether you're in leadership or not, even just as a regular employee, to get into the space and the idea of creating a plan for yourself. Because we know for a lack of vision, the people perish. That goes for yourself personally, for your family. And so once I shifted to a different position and I had to shift to a different perspective, I realized that I needed to do a new thing and I needed new tools. So I've created my own plan. And one of the great things about AI is it is a great brainstorming tool. And I keep promising you guys, and I've shown you guys some things about how I use AI. But like you can just take your ideas and watch the AI generate them and bring them to life. So I wanted these four pillars and these pillars of, and I wanted to create a protocol. So because we talked about on the Renaissance Woman show and on the Hebrew Woman show talking about leadership, we talked about that power of the pause. And some people with it 67, I think it's what we're calling in here is 60 seconds of sovereignty. But I think it really takes more than that. But just to get the idea, because guess what? Sometimes those 60 seconds might need to turn into 60 minutes before you respond to that email, before you respond to that go take a walk. You may need to go take a break. But to set up and develop you a sovereignty protocol, I said this is the way. You know, I on the Mandalorian side of the game, I had to create a way for me. So for me, the four pillars. The first pillar is I had to develop that hard line, and I will tell you, I learn something new every day being in leadership. Today, for example, I ran across a difficult situation, and I always, whenever I am in a situation where things fall apart and they don't go well, I go back and I do a post mortem. I dissect the situation. What went right? What went wrong? What could I have done better? Where did I step in it? Because when I can go back and yeah, it's Monday morning, so I'm Monday morning quarterback a lot of my situations. I see what not only went wrong, but how did I get there? Okay, how did I find myself in this valley? Yeah, I talked about that yesterday, the value in the valley, and so I'm in a valley right now, and it's just tactically when I'm looking around and I'm checking the terrain, I have to be honest about where I am and how I got there. So for this protocol, these four pillars, I understood that I needed to develop a hard line. The hard line for me is if you first identify your hard line. This is going to be your territory, your law. So for me, that's the Bible. My hard line is the Bible. So with that, that's my foundation. So from there, I'll build out everything else. So one of the first pillars, so create your four pillars. I'm just showing you this so you can see my strategy and how I am building my own plan. And then I'll tell you what my text is because this is a study in leadership that I'm doing. I'm not just passing a fancy. I'm very serious about my leadership development. So I don't know why that jumped to pillar three. Let me see. I put the numbers in wrong. Anyway, I'll fix that later because I will revisit this same slideshow pretty much just like I do with the Hebrew Woman show because this is my established blueprint. The toolkit. We're going to look inside your toolkit. You need to evaluate your toolkit. So I'm saying wherever you are, wherever you work, you need to assess your situation because this is all about being sovereign. This is about your sovereignty in your workplace, creating your own inner citadel so that if you are working in a situation that is challenging, that you know how to create that sovereign space for yourself. And listen, you may even need to create some sovereignty at home, but when you're a supervisor, you don't have the luxury of being reactive. And when you find yourself in those spaces where you're being reactive, I can say for me personally, this is where I run into trouble. So for me, this can't just be about theory. This is something that I have to make concrete, and that's why I'm building it out. And this is why I will come on here repeatedly and practice this, just like with meditation. And Mark Aurelius, the reason he didn't write his journal for it to become a published novel. That never occurred to him. He was really just studying and writing those principles and getting to know and remembering them. It was a tool for him to make sure that he was exercising his beliefs. I now truly get it and it makes sense. And so I will even say from a biblical perspective that those commandments, and I see why the Bible says that you will meditate on them day and night. When you come in, when you go out, like I start my day with the Bible. I want to start my day with Torah. I want to end my day with Torah because it just makes sense, right? So build your toolkit, whatever you decide that is. This is about working on the reality that you are dealing with on the ground, not the one that you think. Because listen, one of the things that gets a lot of people in trouble at work, whether you're a supervisor or not, is we're always talking about what should happen. And we should all over ourselves and we should all over each other. It doesn't matter what you think should happen. You have to deal with the reality of what is going on. And when I talk about toxic work environments, I can say now, do you see how backwards this is now? Here's the chain of command. That's the other thing. While I believe what the Bible says about being a respecter of person, I still respect the chain of command. And that there's a reason for it. God is a God of order, so it makes sense that we would respect the order of the chain of command. But going back to the toolkit, this is about accepting the reality of where you are. And sometimes, even within your chain of command, that doesn't show up looking the way that you think it should. So that's part of your toolkit. Your chain of command is in your toolkit. And so this is about working with what you have and not what you wish you had. The chain of command. When the clock is ticking and the floor is busy, you're the governor of your unit. So sometimes sovereignty means that you don't wait for permission to be a leader. You know the mission, you govern the work, meaning you manage your team, you manage wherever you are, whether it's a restaurant, a grocery store, a development team, an engineering team, whatever you are working with, you have to govern it. And I can say one thing that a lesson that I've learned repeatedly, it just really was driven home for me is that you cannot manage through a lens of appeasement. And as I have done it myself and I watch others do it, inevitably it always backfires on you, especially if you're dealing with difficult people. And I would even say, even if you're not dealing with a difficult people, it is just human nature to try people. You tried your parents when you were growing up. People are always, and listen, this is the don't tread on me nation. This is the nation of rebels without a cause. We don't want anybody telling us what to do. So as soon as somebody even attempts to tell you what to do, even though they are in a leadership position and you are their reportee, you will still try them. And so this is why, more so than ever, particularly I would say, especially if you are in a hostile work environment, you have to have a hedge around yourself, because any weakness will be exploited. And when we talk about, and I talk about constantly documenting, journaling, writing down what happened. Don't ever think when you're in a hostile work environment that you're the only one writing. Remember, what makes certain toxic teams toxic is the fact that they document too. The difference between you and them is they have no problem with lying in writing. That's why your paperwork has to be sharp. That's why your receipts have to be on point. And you're not going to be able to have any, like, for them, I can give you an example. They'll say something like, she's difficult. She's militant. Especially when you're a black woman, you always have to deal with that angry black woman trope, that angry militant. You saw it happen to Michelle Obama. You're going to and anybody else. Whenever people have a problem with you as a black woman in leadership, they're always going to go for the angry black woman trope. That's just a given. What you need to do, instead of getting emotional about it, demand clarity. Don't allow them to gaslight you with descriptors, because that's how you feel. So you feel that I'm militant. I have no control over how you feel. Just like I have no control over the way my voice sounds. And I've even had the sound of my voice weaponized against me as if it is something that I can just go change. And that's one of the issues that you'll deal with. There are going to be things about you that you may not be able to just go fix, but you understand that these things can be weaponized against you. So what you're going to have to ask for, demand, is clarity. If they say that you are being difficult, in what capacity? How? Because I am always for constructive criticism and feedback. I even train my AI to do that. I don't want to be agreed with, not even with AI. Give me raw feedback that I can actually use. Okay? And you want to do that. You do not want a bunch of yes people around you. If you have people around you who agree with everything you say, you are going to fail. And what happens is a lot of times if you are so toxic that no one can tell you anything, people will stop telling you anything. And they will just watch you fall. For example, if I attempt to inform you of something, you're not gonna keep getting smart with me or going off on me because I told you something you don't want to hear. Next time I just won't say anything. And I just read an article about how a lot of employees, and they're calling it strategic silence. Isn't that something? Everything is tactical and strategic now. I think we have Chase Hughes syndrome. But at any rate, tactical silence or strategic silence, where employees are weaponizing silence against leadership because they don't listen anyway. And I totally get it. But I also get that a lot of times, particularly if you're in a toxic work environment where you're dealing with mobbing, discrimination, harassment, or any of those type of things, a lot of these scenarios show up differently. A lot of your tactics are going to need to be deployed differently. And so I would definitely say strategic silence is going to be your number one go-to tool. And as you all know, we do the Office Terminator series here, the Jade Method. And I can tell you, it is not easy to shift to this type of mindset. Like I was just today, just totally flipped. Justify, argue, defend, explain. Did it? No, it doesn't work. And what did it do? Created a situation for me that I did not want. So when I'm sharing with you all my experience in real time, as I have my experiences and I go through with them, the reason why I'm doing that not only is for me to get practice here, but it also is a reminder to me that I'm chronicling my growth. And when I look back at these videos later on, and really Gary Vee gave me this idea that, watching him watch some of his videos from before, that is growth. And I even saw a short video of him today telling somebody, go live every day, even if it's just for 30 minutes. You need to go live. You need to get out there. You need to create content. So here I am, okay? Oh, let me go back. So the shield. Your shield in management, people, especially those in authority, can be sensitive. They might project their stress onto you. The shield is your professional distance. You hear the tone, you hear the information, and ignore the tone. Don't worry about it. Let it fly right by because again, you can't control the way other people speak. But what you can do is control how you react. And that takes practice. And this is why you all are going to build your own sovereign protocols, okay? So you're here to solve problems, not to absorb them, right? You can't change your boss. You can't change your team. You can change you. You can change how you show up. You can change how you react. And the rest of it, you just have to leave it. So one of the things that I have decided to start doing on Middle Management Mondays is just coming and talking about some of the errors I may have made that week, or whether it was that week or in the past, and what I'm studying. So I can tell you our text if you're interested in following and you want to have conversations with me about it. You want to let me know where you are in your reading. We are covering the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. We are coupling that with the 21 most powerful minutes in the leader's day. Those are the readings, the 21 most powerful minutes in the day, leader's day, they're just short readings, right? Maybe sometimes it's 2 to 3 pages. It's like a daily read or your daily motivation. So you'll read the prompts, you'll journal, you'll read the scriptures that go along with it. That's how you'll get your word in. And these are things you're going to have to schedule. You are going to have to set aside the time to schedule. I also recommend setting aside the time Because if you'll remember, one of the first streams we did here was knowing your status in geography. And no, it wasn't. It was how not knowing your rules can hurt you and your team. And we talked about, and it even goes to the Bible, how not knowing the Bible, especially if that's your operating manual, can hurt you. And so that's why I created my own Bible study course. Like when I tell you that I'm studying, I am in my own personal AI built university, okay? Created my own curriculum. I even have syllabuses, okay? I'm not playing. So the Bible, you're going to do your 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. The two laws that we just finished the law of the lid, but we always bring the previous law with us. So how did the law of the lid show up for you last week would be what we were covering. So I would even say for me this week, the law of the lid and the law of influence, I believe, is the next one. So you would look at this week, you would read the law of influence. Yep, that's correct. The second law is the law of influence. And you would see, you'd read the chapter, and then you would see how this law showed up in your life today. We are coupling that. This is where we get into our little bit of heavier text with the 48 laws of power, 33 strategies of war, and Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. You start there, and you just study for. So we have a 2 week period, and then when we have discussions, or when I come back and I discuss what I've meditated on or what I've come up with, I will discuss with you. And again, you're always welcome to come and share what laws matched what for you. So like last week, I talked about the law of the lid, and I talked about how not outshining the master showed up in that for me, and that put a cap on my lid. You know, today I can say I still came up against my lid. I think that was one of my issues, and then I will say again with that first law of power, and I just keep having that those hiccups with those laws, and there's a couple of other, but I it's time to get off here and go to bed. So I just to give you an idea, but that's where we are. I will finish fixing this slide. I literally just threw this together tonight, so you'll have to give me a chance to work on it, build it out. But I would love to hear your leadership stories, or even just your professional stories. Like, where are you on your personal journey? And I will say that you're a leader. If you have a family, you're a leader. Leadership shows up everywhere you go. You have influence. There are people in your family, your friends who listen to you, they follow you, and they ask you questions. They even ask you who you're voting for. And you know who you are, and you're that person. You owe it to yourself and the people who believe in you to hone your craft. And I realize that I have a responsibility to do that for myself, and so this is why I will continue to show up even when there's nobody here, because this is important to me. Thanks for watching, and have a good night. Shalom.